Hi, I'm Seamless, and today it's time for a new How to Bass tutorial, and I'm going to show you how to make this sound and turn it into this sound. Wee! Alright, so this is another multiband delay tutorial, and in the list of things here, let's go over just the direct signal path, and we'll note some oddities, and we'll answer some questions. So, Harmer, first stop, we heard what it sounded like. Hilarious. Then there's the multiband delay that does one midtone, and then an EQ, and then a saturation, and then a delay, and then a frequency shifter doing its kind of notey job, the idea that it's tuned to its frequency that's following the note tracking. There's a reason that's there. It doesn't have to be there anymore, but we'll talk about that. And then EQ'd again, and then saturated again, and then compressed. So in this list of things that I tend to do, you would see these two things here and go, okay, cool. That's a big reason why it's like incredibly loud now, right? But actually, a big part of the tone is not part of these things because both of these are very not saturated and also very not mixed on. And it's because most of the loudness is being done by this thing here, but like most of the tone is done almost completely by these dudes. And it's because they're that good. And the basic direct skinny of it is that you got these morph tables here. You can basically kind of draw a time position in the multiband and move the morph knob and it will morph through it. And it makes every modulation I've ever heard. It just does. And you can see how these positions don't make a whole lot of visual sense. Like it just kind of seems like I tried different patterns, and it's because I did. And they're both different. And the automation that I chose to do it is mostly about crap shooting my way around a vastness of it, and not necessarily that there is an exact 0 to 100 happening here. Because let's watch what happens when I move around some of the automation. When I have the sound turn on. Main sound, turn on. See what I mean? There's lots of possibilities. I mean, not necessarily endless, but like it is not a regular mind of normal stuff. It's a lot of just like any angle could possibly work if you just try them out. And the reason why is because every one of these is like from here to there or something, and like from there to there or something, and from here to there or something, and they're all quite different. And the difference is just I've yet to figure out a real like solid methodology for determining them yet. But it's a lot. And so far, I hesitate to say that everything it makes is good. No, I don't. I don't hesitate at all to say that. Everything it makes is good. It's just very good. And all right, let's talk about the first step, what this sounded like without the processing. Because it is very loud to get through this Maximus, but this is what it sounds like just at this step. Subtle. So lots of alterations from the defaults here. Smoothing time is important because if you turn it up a bit, it's essentially like it'll wave around very slowly for your motion instead of just whipping to the position, which is sometimes what I want. In this case, it's what I wanted, so it's found very low values. Feedback's very low, but this is on. And what this does is it changes this value per band based on the input of it. Like, so how loud the behavior of whatever sound you're doing in that band will increase the feedback time. And that's great because feedback is where the delay power happens if you change it. While you change the pitch of a thing, the feedback is of what it changes its pitch. So there being some of it at all is important, but usually to have enough of it that you notice it's happening on the whole system is a bit too much. So there being only where there is the appropriately like loud behavior is kind of awesome. Then there's a scale knob. It has a lot of settings in a lot of ways, but in this case I'm using it on its 0.01 setting, which just means very, very small delay times. Versus it's like turning the tempo versus tempo setting off in the delay 3 delay. Then we also have the filter types. because these are 16 bands just laid up across the spectrum. And this is how wide they are, more or less. Like, this guy is pretty soft, and it sounds pretty like, if you're trying to do pads and supersaws, this is a great opportunity. Like, it's nice and smooth. This is not smooth. This is very, like, if you want your sharpness to be maintained, this will maintain your sharpness. And so will this, but with a little bit of lag. But this is just enough, like, for what I need to be doing right now to get that, like, the wavy chunk across. And because we're removing things and its delay and its phase, we're going to have such devastation that we require a high pass and a very low value, other than just normal EQ that I want. And then some saturation. But this, again, I had to walk it back a lot because that was too much power to all come back out, which sounds like this. Once together. And that goes into the next delay. You heard it get a little dinky bit of phasey in there. And you hear this, at least my first thought is, oh, cool, let's put some saturation on that, because it'll multiply into something fun. And that is the thought. But it's just too sensitive to do that to it. So much so that, like, the actual play ends up being to, like, try to do, like, limited saturation and compression just to get the tone out, because it's doing the tone itself. Excuse me. And then the frequency shifter. All right, frequency shifter. So you see that I'm not really doing this, but when I do this, what happens is that it's phase canceling the frequency shifted signal versus the not shifted signal, and kind of like doing the detune Reese style thing inside Harmor. It causes the phase cancellation, but it'll be at the rate of the detuning of this. And these are the bass tones, and that's where this comes into play. So the way I do this is that I play a note, a C note, move the line, play a next octave up, move the line, and that gives me my curve, and then cool, here's my line, and then now it's note tracked when I attach this to the thing. This is just inverting the signal. The only reason this is here is because at once I had two of them, and I was going in opposite directions, but then I just stopped using the first one because the thing that it's for, which is to re-sharpen cloudy things, I didn't need to do anymore. But this one actually does do a job. Like, it does its job. Even good enough that it doesn't need to be that canceled against it. It's just fine being mostly itself. Alright, and then it gets put into the saturation, which again very light, but once upon a time I was doing like Reese level, like hard hitting, like the bass of it, and that's why this was going in there, to be the thing that canceled against the detuned thing. And I stopped doing that, but the tone is still there. So this is in the signal. And then it goes, yep, in there. And this is... There it is. I turned it off and turned it back on again. It came back on full volume. That's why it was weird. After the compression, it's high passed again, and then the sub is readjusted and reintroduced into this fairly satted but not super loud sort of compressor. And then this guy though is doing a lot of interesting work because I know I'm reinforcing the sub with it later. I brought up the low cut super high so that this is actually only the area that is focusing the compression on there, which is a little bit like having a 4-band compressor, because it's like the actual compressor is on the low end is that it's being handled independently, which really did help squash some issues I had with like the peakish areas in here. But for the most part, it's being brought up pretty high, and then the post gain knobs are doing like big EQ action to like even stuff out, and you can tell the low and the mid are pretty low and the high is really high. And that's because the high you heard before this compression, it just wasn't that loud. Like, that's what the even height and tone level would sound if it was from its original self, but that's... So, you know, and beefin'. So this top side is compressed lightly, but then saturated pretty harshly to keep that, like, absolute rammed down sort of approach going on. But, like, in order to get... But it got windy, unnecessarily windy, if I limited it for real. So that meant that, like, it had to get its way through, but it still had to get clamped, so then decapitation by way of saturation. Well, I might not have needed to really do that at that stage now that I think about it. Actually, no, I did need to do it at that stage. And that's because, like, mixing and mastering, level, this would have been bad. But sound design-wise, if I didn't do that, that waviness would have just happened here. But now we have two very solid signals, like, interacting with each other, and that's preferable at this particular level of using these tools, which is the sound design stage of things versus the mixing or mastering stage of things. Right. So, moral of the story here is that the multiband delay, when you put it in like dope comb filter mode, which is where you really just do that, and then you make some morph shapes and then just move that knob around, it really is a whole world of modulation that is a lot of stuff that there are other ways to do, but not that fast. That's really what's very cool about it. Anyway, this patcher will be available to download in the description of this video. Yeah, I'm just automating the one knob on this. It's all very connected to it. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and all of that fun stuff. And as usual, have a nice day.